The global population is in freefall, and human civilization is on the brink of collapse. And yet, no one's really asking the most important question. Why? We're constantly bombarded with statistics, doom-filled projections, and economic warnings. But isn't it just as important to understand why people are having fewer kids in the first place?
I meet many people who think that there are too many humans on Earth, but this is not true. There aren't enough humans on Earth. You can fit all the humans on Earth in the city of New York on one floor.
On one hand, we hear about fertility dropping and women unable to conceive. And yet on the other hand, we hear about people choosing to not have kids. We're warned about economic collapse, AI replacing jobs, and even the end of civilizations. As parents or future parents, we all wonder how this affects our children and what kind of world they'll grow up in. Is this about biology? Are we becoming less fertile? Or are people just deciding to not have children? And if not, why not? The stakes couldn't be higher. Without a clear understanding of why birth rates are falling, we may not be able to reverse it in time. Think of this like a ticking clock. Fertility, social pressures, and the financial strains all add to the countdown. When will we hit zero? So today, I want to break down exactly why I think this is happening and what it means for our future. We hear it everywhere. The world's population is shrinking, and the numbers don't lie. In some countries, fertility rates have fallen well below the replacement level of 2.1 children per woman. For example, South Korea's fertility rate is just 0.72, and countries like Italy and Japan are not far behind, with populations expected to halve by the end of the century. Let's look closer at how much things have changed in the UK, starting with the average age of women having their first child. Back in 1938, nearly 60% of first-time mums were under 30, with many women having children in their early 20s. By the 1960s, there was a noticeable change. This had dropped to 58%, meaning that 42% of women were reaching age 30 without children, signalling a shift towards later motherhood. Fast forward to 2018, and only 44% of first-time mums were under 30, with the majority now starting their families in their 30s. In 2021, the standardised mean age of mothers who gave birth in England and Wales increased to 30.9 years. By 2024, it's been reported that most women in Britain are now having their first child at the age of 32. And one final statistic for you. A record 56.5% of women are childless by the age of 30, compared to 42% in their mother's generation. These statistics show how each generation is beginning motherhood later, reshaping the typical age for starting a family. But while everyone's talking about the numbers and the consequences, hardly anyone is asking the real question: why is this happening? As Elon Musk put it, what ended most civilizations was a low birth rate. Extended periods of prosperity seem to cause birth rates to plummet.
In general, I think we should really view the birth rate as a extremely fundamental crisis. It's really shocking how low it is. The birth rate in America, in the United States, has been below replacement rate since I was born, roughly around 1971 or so. Since then, America has been below replacement rate. And pretty much every country, it seems as soon as they reach a certain level of prosperity, the birth rate drops below replacement.
Are we in fact victims of our own success? When I was in my 20s, I wasn't thinking about kids. I had a career, respect, financial freedom, and I thought that was enough. And I'm not alone. Many women today feel the same. They don't necessarily see kids as an important addition to their lives. But for others, it might be something deeper. Is it the rising cost of living, housing, and childcare? Is it the fear of a changing world with climate concerns and global instability? Or is it simply that life has become too expensive and too stressful to even think about having children? So what if this population drop really is a biological problem? Are we just becoming less fertile as a species? There's no denying that fertility rates are dropping across the board, and while it's easy to assume it's purely a lifestyle choice, biology might have more to do with it than we think. Factors like poor nutrition, hormone disruptors, and the increasing age of first-time mothers all play a role. Today, many women are waiting till their 30s or even 40s to start a family. But the truth is, fertility naturally declines as we age, especially after the age of 35. It wasn't always like this. A century ago, women were often having their first child between the age of 23 and 24, as women married younger and had children soon after. Back then, it was common to start a family much earlier. In fact, for much of human history, women had children younger because biology was driving the timeline, not careers or lifestyle. And I saw this firsthand when I worked in the ambulances. I once asked a midwife, "What's the best age to have a baby?" Out of the earshot of the patient, she said, "Biologically, 16. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we should all rush to have babies as teenagers, but it was a stark reminder that our biology doesn't really care about careers, holiday plans, or promotions at work. We have a finite window for optimal fertility. Today, women have many more options and social pressure to embrace these options. They're encouraged to stay in education longer and explore more career opportunities, which is fantastic, but it's creating a clash with our biological reality. By the time many women feel ready for children, they might already be facing fertility challenges they didn't anticipate. I think we also need to consider the impact of taking long-term contraceptives, environmental pollutants, and our nutrition as well. We're eating a lot of processed food. We don't always know the origin of this food. Is this having an impact on our bodies and our fertility and our ability to conceive or even produce healthy eggs? So while it may not be the only reason, biology is certainly part of the puzzle. Women are older having babies, and their health and ability to be able to conceive may not be as optimal as it used to be. Now, let's look at the other side of this question. Are people simply choosing to not have kids because of societal pressures or economic barriers? Modern life is undeniably expensive. Housing prices are soaring, childcare costs can be overwhelming, and many families rely on two incomes just to get by. For a lot of people, the idea of adding a child into that mix seems impossible. And when you factor in rising student debt, the cost of education, and the pressure to keep up with certain lifestyles, it's no surprise that more people are delaying or even opting out of parenthood altogether. And it's not just the financial aspect. There's a social shift happening too. We've spent decades telling women they can have it all: the high-powered career, financial independence, the freedom to travel and enjoy life. But now we're also saying, oh, by the way, make sure you have kids before it's too late. The pressure to succeed professionally and then transition into motherhood doesn't always line up. Another factor, society's growing obsession with outward appearances. Big houses, fancy cars, luxury vacations. We see it all over social media. Many couples feel that they need to reach a certain lifestyle milestone before they can start a family. They want a bigger house, the perfect nursery, and even that exotic holiday before they feel ready. But the harsh reality is that biology doesn't wait for your dream house or holiday plans. I've spoken to couples who are in their mid-30s who say they want kids, but they just don't feel ready yet. They're waiting to get that bigger house or tick something else off their life list. And while that's their choice, of course, the longer they wait, the more difficult it could become. They might not even realise how much time is slipping away. Are we succumbing to this pressure to live an Instagram-perfect life at the expense of starting a family? I've said it once, and I'll say it again. Fertility doesn't care about holidays or other life milestones. You don't know anything about your fertility until you start trying to have a baby. And the later you start, the less chance there is to do something about it if there's an issue. Let's talk about a phenomenon we're seeing more and more, the way societal pressures are subtly sabotaging relationships. From the rise of platforms like OnlyFans to the narrative that women shouldn't settle for anything less than the perfect partner, something strange is happening that's distracting both men and women from forming real, lasting connections. Everywhere we turn, we're bombarded with this idea that relationships need to fit a certain mould. Women are told they need a partner who's not only financially successful, but also emotionally sensitive, physically fit, and an all-round perfect man, a 10 out of 10.
Who is your perfect guy?
He's intelligent, supportive, funny. He's romantic and courageous. He's got a good body, but he doesn't have to look in the mirror every 2 minutes. He likes animals and children, and he'll change poopy diapers. Oh, and he plays an instrument, and he loves his mother. He's kind, sensitive, and gentle. He's not afraid to cry in front of me.
This is a man we're talking about, right?
And men, they're being told that being masculine being the provider or taking charge, is somehow toxic. This leaves both men and women confused, trying to live up to these unrealistic expectations. It's no wonder people are struggling to find meaningful relationships. For many men, embracing masculinity has become something they feel pressured to shy away from. But for a woman to feel secure enough to raise a family, she often seeks those traditional masculine qualities: stability, strength, and a sense of protection. For men, there's a growing confusion about how to navigate these expectations. They're being shamed for showing traditional masculinity, yet many women still desire those qualities in a partner. And for women, the pressure to find the perfect man means they might end up waiting longer or never finding a partner at all. Society's message is pushing us further apart rather than bringing us together. We need to acknowledge that both men and women are feeling this pressure. Women are told not to settle, and men are being told to suppress their masculine traits. It's creating a disconnect where both sides feel lost, and as a result, fewer relationships are forming, which means fewer families and ultimately fewer children. The impact on population decline is undeniable. This is probably clearest to see in the decline in marriage rates. If we look at the UK data today, we know that the marriage rate is approximately 20.3 marriages per 1,000 unmarried men and 18.3 per 1,000 unmarried women. This contrasts sharply with the 1960s, when marriage rates were significantly higher. In the UK, the rate was around 67.8 per 1,000 unmarried men and 50.9 per 1,000 unmarried women. Birth rates were also higher during that time, with approximately 2.7 children per woman in the UK. Marriage used to be seen as the foundation for starting a family, a source of stability and partnership. But with all the societal distractions we've discussed, fewer people are taking that step. The narrative we see today, where people feel pressured to wait for the perfect partner or prioritise career and personal freedom, means that many are choosing to delay marriage or opt out altogether. And with fewer long-term partnerships being formed, fewer families are being started. Marriage isn't just about tradition. It's a key part of family life for many. Without these long-term, stable partnerships, fewer people are willing to take on the challenges and responsibilities of raising children. I'm not saying that children can only be born within a marriage, but there is a real correlation between the decline in marriage rates and the decline in birth rates. And as marriage rates drop, the number of children being born drops too. The decline in marriage is directly linked to the population crisis we're seeing today. This isn't just a choice people are making in isolation. This is part of a broader cultural shift. With fewer marriages, we're seeing fewer families and ultimately fewer children. And that's a crucial piece of the puzzle when we look at why global population is shrinking. So what does all this mean for the future of our society and economy? If fewer people are getting married and having children, what impact does that have on the world we live in? The consequences of declining birth rates and shrinking family sizes aren't just personal. They ripple out into the economy in ways we're already starting to feel. With fewer children being born, we'll have fewer people entering the workforce in years to come. This means a smaller working population trying to support an increasingly ageing society. Countries like Japan are already experiencing this, with more people retiring than joining the workforce, and the strain is starting to show. And it's not just about a shrinking workforce. Social services, pensions, the healthcare systems are all built on the assumption that there will be enough people working to support the older generation. But if birth rates continue to fall, who is going to pay into these systems? Governments may be forced to raise taxes or reduce benefits to keep up with the demand of healthcare and retirement benefits. We've already seen the age of retirement is going up and up and up. Some argue that technology, AI, and automation might fill in the gaps. And while it's true that advancements in technology can replace some jobs, they can't replace everything. Robots can't raise families, and they can't provide emotional support, and they can't care for the elderly in the way that humans can. There's no technological substitute for the value of real human connection and the support that families bring to society. And that's the key takeaway. As populations decline, we're not just losing workers, we're losing the support systems that keep society functioning. Families. When fewer children are born, it means fewer people to take care of ageing parents, fewer future innovators, and fewer contributors to the economy. The effects compound and spread across generations. And the result is a society that's less vibrant, less dynamic, and less capable of sustaining itself in the long term. Countries with ageing populations are already grappling with these challenges, and if we don't address the underlying issues driving population decline, more nations will face the same fate. Okay, we've talked about some pretty heavy stuff, but it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot we can do to turn things around, and it starts with shifting how we think about family life. In some countries, governments have already started offering financial incentives, better parental leave policies, and childcare support to make it easier for families to grow. While these measures have had mixed results, they are a step in the right direction. These are great steps forward, but we need something even bigger, a cultural shift. As a society, we need to start valuing family more and moving away from the idea that success and happiness are only measured by careers, money, or status. Raising children isn't just a responsibility, it is a joy. Think about it. You're shaping the next generation, creating strong, resilient kids who will grow into amazing adults. That is pretty powerful. This is where intentional parenting comes in. It's about being thoughtful and present in how we raise our kids, giving them the tools they need to thrive in a world that's constantly changing. Now, I know raising kids is tough. Our society has moved away from the village that used to support parents, and now so many of us feel like we're doing it alone. That's why on this channel, I try to offer real support for parents dealing with everyday challenges, whether it's tantrums, sleep issues, or just figuring out how to balance it all. I've been there and I know how overwhelming it can be. We might not have that village anymore, but there are ways to build new support systems, even in today's world. I'm here to help you feel more confident as a parent and remind you don't have to do it all by yourself. We need to change the narrative. Raising a family isn't a burden or a sacrifice, it's one of the most fulfilling things we can do. Strong families create strong societies. We can do that by prioritising family life and recognising that success isn't just about work or money, it's about love, growth, and building something that lasts. If you enjoyed this discussion, then I think you'll enjoy this video. It's about regretful parents. It's a fascinating look at why some parents feel overwhelmed and disappointed in family life, and what it really says about the pressures of modern parenting. I'll see you there.